Can poetry help you grow personally and professionally? April is National Poetry Month, so I thought it would be fun to talk about the importance of poetry, not just if you're a writer or an author or an artist, but everyone. And if you're thinking, hey, I'm not really into poetry, hear me out. Because there are actually so many benefits to reading and writing poetry. Plus, I have a fun challenge for you at the end. Why does poetry matter? When was the last time you read a really beautiful poem? Or maybe you read a quote that really spoke to you and moved you. That is what poetry does. It makes us feel deeply. It gives us language to some of those feelings that we don't know how to express. Have you ever read a poem or maybe something in a book or a quote, and you're not even really sure why it resonates with you? You felt so moved by it, but you don't know why. Maybe there's a poem that you read and you don't even know what it means, but you know that you love it. Poetry helps us express our emotions and make sense of the world. Poetry reminds us that we all have unique experiences, but someone else has gone through something that you're going through. They're feeling something that you're feeling. Poetry helps us with our stress and anxiety. In fact, there was a study done with nursing students, and they went through a 10-session group poetry therapy program that significantly decreased anxiety levels among nurses, which highlights how poetry helps alleviate stress in academic settings. Research has also shown that poetry helps with our overall mental health. Research has shown that expressive writing, like poetry, can lead to positive mood changes and behavioral improvements. This is why I love sharing Julia Cameron's morning pages. It's right when you wake up and you just start scribbling on the page whatever you're thinking, whatever you're going through. Writing your emotions, writing your feelings, writing whatever is on your heart. And sometimes those words are so poetic. Sometimes they turn into a poem. So, how does poetry help us professionally? Great leaders often turn to poetry because it helps us get in touch with our emotions, encourages mindfulness and emotional awareness. Reading and writing poetry can help us process difficult emotions and build resilience. And poetry strengthens our communication skills. Think about it. Just choosing the right words, choosing words that is going to spark emotion from your team, especially if you're trying to share a vision and mission for where you're going. Poetry helps us become better storytellers, and that is such an important skill, especially when we are encouraging not only our team, but our clients and our community to walk alongside us to fulfill this mission. Studies actually show that leaders that read poetry have better decision making skills. John F. Kennedy famously admired poetry and believed it was essential for leadership. He said, when power leads man towards arrogance, poetry reminds him of his limitations. Many of his speeches feel very poetic, which make them more compelling and memorable. Poetry helps us get through the challenges in our lives. A few years ago, I came across this book, The Poetry Pharmacy by William Seagard. I have a couple of them here. And what's so beautiful about this is that he believes that poetry is like medicine. Whatever it is that you're going through, there is a poem to help you through it. For example, there's a poem for when you lack courage. There's a poem for when you're longing for beauty, when you're feeling the guilt of not living in the moment. There's a poem to help you work through that. The poem William shares for this particular condition is called The Present by Billy Collins. Much has been said about being in the present. It's the place to be, according to the gurus, like the latest club on the downtown scene, but no one, it seems, is able to give you directions. It doesn't seem desirable or even possible to wake up every morning and begin leaping from one second into the next until you fall exhausted back into bed. Plus, there'd be no past, with so many scenes to savor and regret, and no future, the place you will die. But not before flying around with a jetpack. The trouble with the present is that it's always in a state of vanishing. Take the second it takes to end this sentence with a period. Already gone. What about the moment that exists between banging your thumb with a hammer and realizing you are in a whole lot of pain? What about the one that occurs after you hear the punchline but before you get the joke? Is that where the wise men want us to live? In that intervening tick, the tiny slot that occurs after you have spent hours searching downtown for that new club and just before you give up and head back home? Maybe you loved that poem, maybe you didn't. It doesn't matter. Different poems resonate with each of us. That is the beauty of poetry. There is something for everyone. There is so much poetry to read, just like great books and great quotes and great podcasts and great articles. Different things resonate with each of us. But poetry, There's just this special place for poetry, and not everybody turns to it when they're feeling something or when they can't describe what they're going through, but they know they need to feel some type of emotion. That's when you turn to poetry. Poetry isn't just for writers or poets or artists. Poetry is for you. It's for me. It's for all of us. Okay, here's your challenge. I promise you a challenge. I'm giving you the challenge. April is National Poetry Month. Writer's Digest does a poem a day challenge. I've done it for the past couple years and it's so much fun. I'm sure you can guess what it is. A poem a day challenge is, yes, you write a poem a day, which does feel like maybe a lot, but it doesn't have to take hours and hours to write a poem. It can be a small little poem. And because oftentimes it's challenging for us to just sit down and write a poem, like, what is it going to be about? Where do I start? They make it easy. So every day they give us a poetry prompt. You can use the prompt, you don't have to use the prompt. The whole idea is just to get something out on the page, to write a poem, no matter how short or how long, whatever it is. If you want to share it, great. If you don't want to share it, great. What's cool about this community is that they have all of these different people that come together on National Poetry Month and they participate in this Poem a Day challenge, and you get to share your poem if you'd like. And one of the most beautiful things is that we all have the same prompt for the day, but the poems are vastly different. Some people write funny poems, some people write tragic poems, some people write silly poems, some people write rhyming poems, others not at all. That's one of my favorite parts, is to read the work of other people. It's like what we talked about in the beginning. We are all very different, but we all have these same feelings and emotions. We've gone through similar challenges, and you can feel that so deeply in some of the poems that people write. This is a fun opportunity to tap into your creative side, to tap into an art form that maybe you're not used to exploring. Maybe you want to commit to the challenge and really write a poem every single day. And maybe you decide, hey, I'm going to write one a week, or I'm going to write a couple a month. Amazing. See what happens. See how you feel. Maybe you love it, maybe you don't. But either way, you're going to get exposed to a little bit more poetry and see how it makes you feel. I will add the link to the Poem a Day Challenge. I am not associated with Writer's Digest in any way. This is not sponsored in any way. I just love the challenge and I love poetry. So that's why I wanted to share it. And I hope that I see you in there. Poetry isn't just words on a page, it's a way for us to see the world differently. So whether or not you do the challenge, I hope that you dig into some poetry. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. And until next time, go create something.